English with Deck.
So I have been living in Japan since 2019. Wow. So that's right. What we're now in 2026. So 6 years, 7 years this June. This June. So 7 years this June. Wow. So basically 6.5 years. And I think I mentioned this in a previous episode a little bit, but I wanted to go into more detail. Now, living somewhere that isn't your home country, obviously there are good and bad points, of course. And over time, if you end up staying somewhere for long enough, it starts to feel like home. Wow, that sounds very cliche, but it is true. And now I definitely do think of Japan as my home. Of course, I think of myself as English, etc., but I do think of Japan as my home, which is interesting. And one thing I wanted to talk a bit about today was just how some of the small things and the big things, So like, a lot when I first came here, everything was new, exciting, maybe scary. But then over time it became more normal, even boring in a sense, in the most positive way, I mean that. For example, when I first arrived in Japan, I was living in Kanagawa, so not quite Tokyo crazy, but still very, very busy. You have pretty much everything on your doorstep. There was no lack of amenity. And living there the first year, looking back now, the first year was just a blur. Every day exploring new places, seeing new things, still trying to understand how things worked. And I was lucky, my wife is Japanese, she speaks English. My wife's family, most of them speak some English, or at least English to varying degrees, is a better way of putting it. But anyway, yeah, I get on with all them and stuff. So I had that safety net, which really helped. And I know people who didn't have that when they first arrived, and they spoke as little Japanese as I did. And yeah, the difference in acclimatizing to life here is amazing. How quickly you can acclimatize if you have that safety net. How much easier it is to acclimatize. But anyway, yeah, like that first year, it was just a blur. Everything was crazy. And I remember in the second and third year-ish, I never thought, I really, really miss England or other countries I'd lived in. But I did think this is better or that is better over there in the other country. But then I realised thinking like that actually isn't the most positive way to go about your life. If you compare everything, you'll just feel a bit negative, a bit sad. Anyway, after that, the fourth year onwards until now, I really began to get this sense of home, because I guess, I just become accustomed, used to the way of life, the daily things you see daily, the things you have to do daily, how things look, how things taste, etc. But what I think is pretty fun is the little things. Now, when I say the little things, I mean the things which seem insignificant to us for the most part. For example, bit of a silly one, sorry if you are eating, and I think I have mentioned this before, but the toilets. The fact that you have a toilet which is so sophisticated and has electronics attached to it. You can heat it up. It can work as a cleaner. It can clean itself. Talking about that, they even have. I don't have one in my home that does this, but they sing a little song to mask, in big inverted commas, mask what you're doing. I think it draws more attention, but anyway, yeah, that's the toilets and the baths. I know these are a thing, of course, in other countries, but they're very normalised here. The fact that you can just set on a lot of baths, you can set a timer for when the water will fill up. You can keep it at a certain temperature. You can even drain it really quickly and from the remote control panel. And also some of the newer ones have intercoms attached to them. And again, it's pretty commonplace. That's why I mention it. Some of the other things which I still noticed, which are quite small things, is the post. It's insane. It's bloody amazing. If I am not at home when my delivery is meant to arrive, and then I get this little card in the letterbox saying it arrived, and now I can either call or I can just do the QR code. And then, boom, I live in a pretty remote place now, and it still arrives within the same day, assuming I contact them within a reasonable time, of course. But still, that's amazing, And yeah, the delivery service in Japan is bloody brilliant. And of course, the convenience is just ridiculous. Even living where I live, things which I really do take for granted are just how convenient and how much I have available in Japan, But one thing I did want to mention, and one thing that took me time to get used to really is it makes sense, but just how to talk to people. There is a definitely different etiquette, completely normal. Different culture, different etiquette to England. Absolutely, of course, it should be. Different to Australia as well. Different to New Zealand. Different to America. But that took me a while. And in Japan, they have a very commonly used phrase which even many Japanese people I know struggle with. And that is basically reading the air. And of course, you have to read the air in most countries. In fact, all, I think. But reading the air here becomes it's on a different level. It's a different level of importance. And stuff like that really took me a while to get used to. Just so as not to offend or disagree with people in a very positive way. You could have a conversation. However, you need to if the person is not aware of, when I was unaware of how to do this, if the person is unsure of, for example, speaking to someone who is unsure of how to read the air, it could cause a bit of tension, But yeah, for today, that is all I have to say, and I would like to continue this topic in the future. Now, if anyone has any comments or any requests for future episodes or any questions about current episodes, I would love to hear them. Now you can comment on the episodes themselves or feel free to drop me a message. Anyway, for now, have a great day and see you again soon.